A man thought he was saving a helpless puppy left alone on a rainy road. Its little body shook in his hands, its huge eyes begging for help. He wrapped it in his shirt, took it home, and promised to keep it safe. But as days went by, weird things started happening. Sounds no puppy should ever make. Movements way too quick and sharp. Eyes that glowed in the dark. Worried, he rushed it to the vet. The doctor's face turned white, his hands shaking as he whispered the truth. What the man had brought home wasn't a puppy at all, and what he found out shocked everyone. The rain had just started falling, a light rain tapping on the car window as Jack drove down the lonely country road. It was late, the kind of late where the world feels asleep, where every shadow on the side of the road seems alive. He was tired from work and wanted to get home, but something else was about to happen. Up ahead, something moved. A small dark shape shook at the edge of the road, half hidden in the tall grass. Jack slowed down, looking hard through the rain. At first, he thought it might be a kitten, or maybe just some trash blown from the storm. But then, the shape lifted its head, and two huge, glassy eyes shined in the light from his car. His heart hurt for it. It was tiny, weak, and shaking. "Oh no," Jack said quietly, pulling over quickly. He stepped out, rain making his shirt wet, and bent down low near the shaking creature. It was no bigger than his hand with slick, jet-black fur, flat from the rain. Its ears looked way too big for its head, and its little body shook hard as if the cold night might swallow it whole. Jack's first thought was simple. Puppy. Someone had left it there, left it here to die in the wet grass. He felt anger grow in his chest at the thought of someone being so mean. "Who could do this?" he whispered, carefully reaching out his hand. The creature didn't bark, didn't cry. Instead, it let out the smallest squeak, almost like a kitten's cry. Its tiny claws held tight to Jack's fingers as he lifted it from the ground. How light it was, or rather how little it weighed, nearly broke his heart. It couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Jack held it gently against his chest, keeping it safe from the rain. The creature blinked up at him with wide, watery eyes, as though knowing he was its only chance. In that moment, something changed inside him. He wasn't just picking up a lost animal. He was saving a life. Back at his truck, Jack wrapped the shaking body in an old flannel shirt he kept behind the seat. "It's okay, little one. You're safe now," he whispered. The puppy curled into the warmth, its tiny tongue peeking out as it fell into a tired sleep. The drive home felt strange. Jack kept looking at the bundle beside him, his heart getting softer with every breath it took. But as the minutes passed, he couldn't shake one scary thought. Something about this creature seemed different. Its head was oddly shaped, more round than a normal puppy's. Its eyes were bigger, darker, almost too full of feeling, and its movements, though weak, seemed strangely quick, like it wasn't struggling to survive. It was adapting, watching, learning. Jack pushed the thoughts away. Being tired and emotional was messing with his thinking. After all, what else could it be besides a puppy? Still, when he pulled into his driveway, the rain now falling harder, he felt a strange chill. Holding the bundle close, he whispered again as much to himself as to the creature, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." As he stepped into the warm light of his home, he had no idea that this single act of kindness, rescuing what he thought was a helpless puppy, was about to reveal a mystery so shocking it would leave even an experienced veterinarian pale with fear. Jack placed the tiny bundle on a soft towel in his living room, his hands moving carefully as if he were holding something made of glass. The little creature moved, blinking against the sudden warmth of the house. Its huge eyes glistened in the lamplight, showing back his own worried face. "Poor thing," he said quietly, gently rubbing its damp fur with the corner of the towel. The creature squeaked again, soft, high-pitched, but nothing like the yip of a puppy. It grabbed the towel with surprising strength for something so small, curling its claws into the fabric before finally relaxing in his hands. Jack's heart melted. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen anything so helpless. He put a shallow bowl of warm milk on the floor, hoping the little one would drink it. The creature sniffed the air, wobbled forward shakily, and then lapped at the liquid with surprising hunger. Jack smiled, relief washing over him. "That's it, buddy. You're going to be okay." He watched for several minutes, his tiredness forgotten. There was something mesmerizing about the way the creature moved. Light, almost silent like a shadow moving across the floor. Its tail twitched back and forth, its ears twitching at every small sound in the house. Even in its weak state, it seemed unusually alert, as though always studying what was around it. By the time the little one finished, its belly was full and round. It walked back to Jack, pressing against his leg. He reached down and lifted it, surprised again by how light it was. Without waiting, the creature curled into his chest, tucking its tiny head beneath his chin. Jack's throat tightened with emotion. He had only known it for an hour, yet he already felt protective, as if fate had placed this fragile life into his hands. That night, he made a small bed from a shoebox, filling it with an old sweatshirt. The creature nestled into it right away, but when Jack tried to step away, it squeaked loudly, scrambling toward the edge. Jack laughed softly, lifting it back into his hands. All right. You want company?" Against what he thought was smart, he let it sleep curled on his pillow. He lay awake for hours, listening to its tiny breaths, feeling its warmth against his cheek. By morning, he had already given it a name, Shadow. It seemed right for something so small and dark, a mysterious little friend who had appeared out of nowhere. As the days passed, Shadow settled into the house like it had always belonged. But it wasn't like any puppy Jack had ever raised. Shadow didn't bark or whine. Instead, it made odd chirping sounds, sometimes low, sometimes sharp, always getting Jack's attention. Its eyes seemed almost too full of feeling, following him wherever he went. And unlike most pups, Shadow didn't stumble clumsily as it got comfortable. Its movements were exact, smooth, almost cat-like. One evening, while Jack read on the couch, he felt eyes on him. Looking down, he found Shadow sitting on the armrest, staring at him with a strength that made his skin prickle. The little creature tilted its head, ears twitching before letting out a sound that sent a chill down his spine. Not a bark, not a meow, but something in between. Jack laughed nervously. "You're a strange little guy, aren't you?" Despite the weird things, Jack's love grew stronger. He took photos, shared them with friends, who responded with confusion. "That's the weirdest puppy I've ever seen," one texted. Another joked, "Are you sure it's a dog?" Jack brushed it off. People didn't understand. Shadow was his responsibility now, his family. At night, Shadow was restless. While Jack tried to sleep, the creature often crept silently around the room, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. More than once, he woke to find it sitting at the foot of the bed, watching him. Strangely, he didn't feel scared. If anything, he felt safe. Each day, the bond grew deeper. Jack carried Shadow everywhere, fed it carefully, even talked to it as though it could understand. And in a way, it seemed to. Its head would tilt at the sound of his voice, its tail flicking with recognition. But beneath the warmth of their growing bond waited a shadow of worry. The more time he spent with Shadow, the more certain Jack became. This wasn't just a puppy. It was something else, something he couldn't quite name. And soon, he would learn the truth. At first, Jack convinced himself that Shadow's strange habits were simply part of being a young pup. But as the days turned into weeks, the little creature's oddities became harder to ignore. For one, Shadow never barked. Not once. There were no playful yips, no cries for food, no excited greetings at the door. Instead, it made strange chirping sounds that echoed oddly in the quiet house, sometimes soft like a bird, sometimes sharp enough to make the hairs on Jack's arm stand up. Each time, Shadow's wide black eyes fixed on him, almost as if testing how he would react. Then there was the way it moved. Unlike clumsy puppies that stumbled as they grew, Shadow was strangely graceful. Its tiny body glided across the floor, claws clicking softly against the wood. It could jump onto furniture far higher than Jack thought possible for its size. Once he watched in shocked silence as it climbed up the back of the couch in a single smooth motion, balancing perfectly on the edge like a tiny hunter, looking over its territory. Friends who visited were quick to notice. "That doesn't look like a puppy," one neighbor said carefully, watching Shadow creep along the windowsill. "Are you sure you know what that is?" Jack laughed it off, though worry prickled at the back of his mind. He didn't want to admit it, but the truth was eating at him. At night, the strangeness became clear. Shadow seemed most alive when the house went dark. While Jack struggled to sleep, the creature walked quietly from room to room. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, two orbs that caught the smallest bit of moonlight. More than once, Jack woke to find Shadow sitting on the dresser, staring down at him with scary intensity. Food was another puzzle. Shadow refused dog food, no matter how Jack tried to hide it. Milk and soft scraps worked for a while, but then it began showing unusual likes, sniffing curiously at raw meat, even hissing faintly when Jack tried to pull it away. Puppies didn't hiss. Despite the warning signs, Jack couldn't bring himself to turn away. The bond they had formed was real. Shadow still curled against his chest when he sat on the couch, still chirped softly when he came home, as if saying hello. But deep inside, Jack's worry grew. What if he wasn't caring for it properly? What if it wasn't even safe for him to keep? The breaking point came one evening when Jack carried Shadow outside to feel the grass beneath its paws. A neighbor's dog barked loudly from across the fence. Shadow stiffened, its tiny body shaking, not with fear but with something darker. It let out a low, deep sound Jack had never heard before. A sound that didn't belong to any puppy. The barking dog went silent, tail between its legs, backing away without another sound. Jack's stomach dropped. He stood frozen, holding Shadow in his arms. For the first time since finding the little creature, he wasn't sure what he was holding. And that night, unable to ignore the worry any longer, Jack made a decision. Tomorrow he would take Shadow to the vet. The next morning came gray and heavy, as if the sky itself carried the weight of Jack's worry. He placed Shadow gently into a small carrier lined with a blanket. The little creature chirped softly, wide eyes blinking up at him as if sensing something was wrong. Jack swallowed hard. "It's okay, buddy. We're just going to make sure you're healthy." The drive felt endless. Every bump in the road rattled his nerves. He kept looking at the carrier beside him, where Shadow watched silently, too calm for what should have been an energetic puppy. By the time he pulled into the veterinary clinic's parking lot, Jack's palms were wet with sweat. Inside, the waiting room buzzed with the usual chaos. Dogs barking, cats meowing, the smell of cleaning stuff heavy in the air. Jack sat in the corner, holding the carrier close to his chest. A little girl leaned over from across the room, pointing. "Mommy, look at that puppy. It's so tiny." Her mother gave a polite smile, but frowned at the creature's huge eyes and eerie stillness. Jack offered a strained nod, shifting uncomfortably. When his name was finally called, relief and fear crashed together inside him. He followed the nurse down a narrow hallway into an examination room. The vet, Dr. Martinez, entered moments later, a kind-faced man with decades of experience. "So, what have we got here today?" he asked warmly. Jack lifted Shadow out of the carrier, placing him on the examination table. The tiny creature blinked under the bright light, ears twitching. Dr. Martinez leaned forward, his face neutral at first. Looks young. Very young. Where did you find it?" "On the side of the road," Jack explained quickly. "It was raining and well, I thought it was a puppy someone dumped. I couldn't just leave it there." The vet didn't respond right away. He adjusted his glasses, gently touching Shadow's head, then lifting one of its paws. His eyebrows furrowed. He checked its teeth, its ears, its claws. The longer the exam went on, the more his face changed from curiosity to concern, then to something colder. Jack's heart began to race. "Is something wrong?" Dr. Martinez didn't answer right away. He stepped back, staring down at the creature as if trying to process what he was seeing. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his clipboard. Shadow chirped, the strange sound echoing through the clean room. The vet froze, his pen slipping from his hand. Slowly, he looked at Jack, his face pale. "You said you thought this was a puppy?" Jack nodded quickly, confusion tightening his chest. "Yes, isn't it?" Dr. Martinez's throat worked as he swallowed. His voice was quieter now, edged with disbelief. "No, this is not a puppy." The room went dead silent. Jack blinked, the words not sinking in. He looked at Shadow, who sat calmly on the table, staring back with those huge, unblinking eyes. For the first time, Jack felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. The vet didn't answer right away. He bent closer again, almost scared to touch the creature a second time. His hands moved carefully as though he were handling something dangerous. Finally he straightened, his face serious. "I need to know exactly where you found this. Every detail right now." Jack's mouth went dry. His mind replayed the rain, the roadside, the moment he scooped the shaking figure into his arms. But nothing prepared him for the strength in Dr. Martinez's eyes. Whatever Shadow was, it wasn't what he thought. And the truth, Jack realized with a sinking heart, might be far more terrifying than he could have imagined. The silence in the exam room stretched painfully, broken only by the faint hum of the overhead light. Jack shifted nervously, his eyes moving between Dr. Martinez and the small creature sitting calmly on the steel table. Shadow tilted its head, those wide black eyes shining as if it understood every word left unspoken. Finally, the vet breathed out slowly, adjusting his glasses with shaky hands. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice low. "This is not a puppy." "Not even close," Jack blinked, the words sinking like stones in his chest. "Then what is it?" Dr. Martinez hesitated, as though saying it out loud would make the truth heavier. He leaned closer to the little creature, pointing at its huge ears, its unusual jawline, the sharpness of its claws. "Puppies don't have features like this. Their eyes don't glow this way. Their movements aren't this exact. What you've brought here isn't tamed."
"It's wild." Jack's stomach dropped.
"Wild? You mean like a fox?" The vet shook his head seriously. "No, not a fox. Not any ordinary animal you'd see walking around nearby. This is a cub of a species you should never have been near." He straightened, his face pale. "Jack, you've been keeping a predator in your house." The words crashed over him like thunder. He looked down at Shadow, still sitting calmly, its tiny chest rising and falling as though it were the most harmless thing in the world. "A predator? No, that can't be. It's just a baby. It needed help." Dr. Martinez's look hardened. "That's exactly what makes it dangerous. Right now, it's small, helpless even. But in a few months, this creature could become deadly. Its instincts are not like a dog's. It isn't built to bond with humans. Keeping it was risky. Very risky." Jack's pulse thundered in his ears. His hands shook as he reached toward Shadow, torn between fear and the fierce protectiveness that had grown inside him since that rainy night. Could it really be true? Had he mistaken a predator for a puppy? The vet's next words made his skin crawl. "I've seen something like this before. Once authorities took an illegal exotic cub from criminals. People think they're pets when they're small, but they grow fast, and they don't forget their nature." He paused, swallowing hard. "Where exactly did you find it?" Jack's voice shook. "On the roadside near the woods, alone." Dr. Martinez exchanged a serious look with the nurse. "If there's one, there may be more, and if its mother is out there—" He trailed off, leaving the warning unspoken. Jack's heart pounded. He stared at Shadow, innocent, fragile, holding onto the towel like any lost creature seeking comfort. Yet now every feature looked different. The sharpness of its claws, the glint in its eyes, the strange, eerie sounds. It all made sense. Shadow wasn't a puppy. He never had been. And the realization left Jack with a terrifying question. What had he really brought into his home? The room felt colder now, though nothing had changed except the weight of Dr. Martinez's words. Jack sat frozen, his eyes locked on Shadow, who sat quietly on the towel, licking its paws with eerie calm. He wanted desperately to see just a puppy, but the truth had broken the dream wide open. Dr. Martinez pulled up a chair and leaned forward, his face serious but patient. "Jack, I need you to listen carefully. What you've been raising, it's not a dog. It's a cub, likely from a wild species. Based on the features, I'd say it's a young wolf or possibly something rarer. Maybe even an exotic predator smuggled into this area." Jack's mouth went dry. A wolf? The word felt strange on his tongue. Impossible to connect with the fragile creature curled at his side. No, that doesn't make sense. Wolves don't just show up on roadsides around here." "You're right," Dr. Martinez admitted. "That's why this worries me. If it is a wolf pup, then its mother may have been nearby or worse, killed. Wolves are protective, and they don't leave their young behind without reason." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "But there's another possibility." Jack leaned forward, dread clawing at his chest. "What possibility?" The vet sighed, his voice low. "Illegal wildlife trafficking. People smuggle exotic animals across borders, selling them on the black market as pets. Cubs are easy to move because they're small and sell for high prices. Many don't survive. Those that do often end up abandoned when their owners realize they can't control them." The words hit Jack like a punch. He pictured Shadow left in a cramped cage, ripped from its mother, moved like cargo. His heart hurt at the thought. "So you're saying someone dumped him?" Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. "It wouldn't be the first time. Criminals often abandon animals when police get too close. A roadside in the rain. It fits the pattern." Jack rubbed his face with shaking hands. He wanted to deny it, to hold on to the image of Shadow as a lost puppy, a chance meeting meant to bring them together. But piece by piece, the puzzle formed a scary picture. The strange cries, the glowing eyes, the sharp claws. It all matched with something wild, something untamed. The vet's tone softened, but his words carried weight. "Jack, I don't doubt your intentions. You saved its life. But wild animals, even cubs, don't lose their instincts. They can't be trained like dogs. Keeping one is dangerous for you and unfair for the animal. It belongs in the wild or in the care of experts who know how to raise it. Jack looked at Shadow, who had climbed onto his arm, curling against him with surprising affection. The warmth of its body pressed into his chest and his heart twisted. How could something so small, so trusting, be a threat? "But look at him," Jack whispered, voice breaking. "He needs me." Dr. Martinez's eyes softened with sympathy. "I understand, but sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let go." The room fell silent. Jack's mind swirled with conflict. Every instinct screamed to protect Shadow, yet the vet's words echoed with reason. If Shadow really was a wolf cub or worse, some exotic predator, keeping him wasn't just dangerous, it was illegal. Still, questions burned. "If it is from criminals," Jack asked quietly, "what happens now? Will they come looking for it?" The vet hesitated, then shook his head. "Most likely not. If they abandoned it, they've already given up. But the police need to know. They'll want to investigate. If there's one cub, there could be more." Jack's stomach tightened. The thought of other creatures out there, suffering, lost, maybe dying in cages, made his chest hurt. He looked at Shadow again. The cub tilted its head, chirping softly, as if sensing his trouble. In that moment, Jack realized this wasn't just about him anymore. Saving Shadow had pulled him into a bigger story, one that reached beyond his home and into the shadows of greed and cruelty. Dr. Martinez placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing bringing it here, but now you need to decide what's next." Jack's heart sank. The bond he'd built felt unbreakable, yet the truth loomed like a storm. Shadow wasn't a puppy. He never had been, and letting go might be the hardest decision of his life. Jack sat in his truck outside the clinic, the rain pattering softly against the windshield. Shadow was curled in the carrier on the passenger seat, eyes half closed, tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. To anyone else, it was just a strange animal, a possible danger. But to Jack, it was family. His mind churned with Dr. Martinez's words: a predator, illegal trafficking, dangerous. None of it matched the creature he had fed, held, and carried against his chest at night. Shadow had looked to him for safety, had pressed its little head into his palm with trust. How could he turn his back now? Yet deep down fear whispered, if Shadow truly was wild, what would happen when it grew? Already its movements were sharper, its cries more haunting. A pup could be trained, but a predator would follow instincts written in its blood. Could love alone be enough to change that? Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, torn between two worlds. On one side was his heart, screaming to protect Shadow no matter the cost. On the other was responsibility, the vet's warning that the cub needed experts, not a man pretending it was a dog. He thought of the neighbors, the little girl who had pointed and called Shadow a puppy. What if the creature attacked one day? What if kindness wasn't enough to tame it? The problem weighed heavily. Keeping Shadow meant risking the safety of others and perhaps his own. Giving him up meant breaking a bond that had already rooted itself deep inside Jack's soul. Either choice felt like losing. Shadow stirred in the carrier, letting out a soft chirp, eyes opening to meet Jack's. The look was innocent, trusting, almost begging. His chest hurt. How could something so small and helpless be a threat? Jack breathed out shakily.
"What am I supposed to do with you?"
He whispered. The only answer was silence, and the knowledge that whatever choice he made, his life would never be the same. By the next day, the story had spread beyond Jack's quiet home. A neighbor who had seen Shadow through the window had taken a photo and posted it online with the caption, "Man rescues mysterious puppy. But is it really a dog?" Within hours, the post went viral. The comments flooded in. Some people were charmed. "So cute. Look at those eyes." Others were alarmed. "And that's no puppy. That's a wild animal. Dangerous." The debate raged across social media, strangers picking apart every detail of Shadow's appearance. Soon, local reporters showed up at Jack's driveway, microphones in hand. They asked rapid questions. "Is it true you've been raising a wild cub? Did you know it could be dangerous? What will you do now?" Jack, overwhelmed, held Shadow in his arms, refusing to answer. The cub blinked at the cameras with eerie calm, only making people more fascinated. Within days, the town was divided. At the grocery store, strangers came up to Jack to praise him. "You saved that poor thing," one woman said, squeezing his arm. "You're a hero." At the park, others whispered behind his back. "Irresponsible. That animal could hurt someone." Children were especially drawn in. They begged their parents to drive past Jack's house, hoping to see the mysterious creature in the window. To them, Shadow wasn't dangerous. He was a fairy tale come to life. Teachers even used the story in classrooms, starting debates about kindness, responsibility, and the wild. But not everyone was charmed. Town officials grew concerned. Rumors spread that wildlife police had been alerted. Some feared Shadow could be diseased. Others warned about the danger of connecting wild animals with humans. The word "taking it away" began to spread, sending panic shooting through Jack's chest. The local news station aired a story one evening. The anchor's voice was serious. "A man in our community believes he rescued a puppy, but experts say it may in fact be a wild cub. Should such animals be allowed in homes, or does compassion outweigh the risk?" Clips of Shadow played on screen, his wide eyes, his strange chirping cries, leaving viewers both fascinated and unsettled. Jack felt the walls closing in. The bond he shared with Shadow was private, personal, but now it had become everyone's business. Each headline, each debate chipped away at his certainty. He was no longer just a man who saved a helpless creature. He was the center of a fight, dividing an entire town. One night, while walking Shadow in his backyard, Jack heard neighbors arguing over the fence. "That animal doesn't belong in a house," one snapped. "If it's wild, it's dangerous." The other argued back, "He saved its life. Are we supposed to punish him for showing compassion?" Their voices carried into the night, echoing Jack's own inner battle. The pressure grew. People he had never met left notes on his doorstep, some urging him to keep Shadow, others demanding he give the cub up immediately. A small group even gathered outside with signs, "Protect wildlife and safety first." The once quiet street now felt like a stage, and Jack stood at the center. Every move watched. Through it all, Shadow remained unchanged. He still curled against Jack's chest at night, still chirped softly when he returned home, still watched him with those haunting, knowing eyes. To Jack he was just Shadow, small, fragile, dependent. But to the town he had become something larger, a symbol. Some saw him as a miracle, proof of human kindness. Others saw him as a threat, proof of human recklessness. And in that divide, Jack realized something chilling. The decision of what to do with Shadow might no longer be his alone. The pressure grew unbearable. Each day, more letters arrived in Jack's mailbox, some praising him for saving Shadow, others warning him that keeping the cub was reckless. The debate online turned into arguments on local radio, even heated discussions at town meetings. Jack could feel the walls closing in. Finally, a letter arrived that made his chest tighten. It was from the State Wildlife Authority requesting that he bring the animal in for evaluation. The paper shook in his hands as he read it. This was no longer just a personal choice. The law was stepping in. That night, Jack sat on the living room floor with Shadow curled in his lap. The cub purred, if it could be called that, chirping softly in his sleep. Jack's hand stroked the soft fur again and again, his throat hurting. Every instinct screamed to protect him, to fight against anyone who tried to take him away. Yet Dr. Martinez's words haunted him. "It belongs in the wild. Keeping it isn't fair to you or to him." Jack closed his eyes, imagining Shadow months from now, larger, stronger, instincts sharpened. Would the cub still curl against his chest, or would those instincts turn as nature demanded? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. The next morning, Jack made his decision. He packed a small bag with Shadow's towel, the flannel shirt he had first wrapped him in, and the toy he had chewed on endlessly. With each item, his heart felt heavier. Finally, he placed Shadow gently in the carrier. The cub chirped in protest, pawing at the bars, not understanding. Jack whispered, "It's okay, buddy. I'm not leaving you. I'm giving you what you deserve, a chance to be free." At the Wildlife Center, officials met him with serious faces. Papers were signed, questions answered. Then came the hardest part, handing over the carrier. Jack lingered, his hand pressed against the side, eyes burning. Shadow stared back, wide-eyed and unblinking, as if sensing the goodbye. Tears blurred Jack's vision as he whispered the final words. "Thank you for letting me be part of your story." The staff carried Shadow away, and the sound of his chirps fading down the hall nearly broke Jack in two. He stood frozen, his chest hollow, yet deep inside. A quiet peace stirred. He had done the right thing. For the first time, Jack understood. Sometimes love means holding on, but sometimes it means letting go. The days after saying goodbye were heavy with silence. Jack's house felt emptier than ever. The absence of tiny chirps and wide, watchful eyes echoing in every corner. He caught himself looking at the shoebox bed he had once made or listening for claws tapping softly against the floor, but the space remained still. And yet, despite the pain in his chest, Jack knew he had made the right choice. Shadow was no longer trapped between two worlds, tamed yet wild. He was in the hands of experts with a chance to grow as he was meant to, not as a pet, not as someone's secret, but as a creature of nature, free to live the life he was born for. Jack often thought back to that rainy night on the roadside. He had believed he was rescuing a helpless puppy. In truth, he had stumbled into a far bigger story, one about the delicate line between kindness and responsibility. He had learned that compassion is more than saving something. It's making choices that sometimes break your heart. The town eventually quieted. The debates faded. But the story of the man who thought he saved a puppy lived on. Schools used it as a lesson about wildlife protection. Families told it as a reminder not to judge by looks. And to Jack, it remained something deeper, a reminder that life can surprise us in ways we never expect. On quiet evenings, he still walked the same road where he first found Shadow. Sometimes he imagined hearing that tiny squeak again, seeing wide eyes shining in the dark grass. A part of him would always miss the little creature that had curled into his chest, trusting him completely. But another part of him took comfort in knowing he had given Shadow what mattered most: a future. In the end, Shadow's story wasn't just about an animal found on a roadside. It was about the choices we make when faced with responsibility. It was about love, sacrifice, and the courage to let go. And as Jack stood beneath the same storm-cooled sky where it all began, he whispered softly to himself, "Sometimes the scariest truths bring the most important lessons."